Hungary has officially severed its ties with the European Union, lowering the EU flag in Budapest and ending 2 decades of membership. Prime Minister Viktor Orbán declared a new dawn for Hungarian sovereignty, announcing an immediate strategic partnership with China and the expanded BRICS bloc. European leaders condemned the move as a betrayal, while Beijing and Moscow celebrated Hungary as a pioneering partner. This dramatic exit, dubbed Hunxit, is the result of years of escalating tensions over rule of law, immigration, and Hungary's growing ties to the East. Orbán argued that EU membership stifled Hungary's economic and cultural sovereignty, and his government's pivot to China and Russia is now the cornerstone of its foreign policy. Financial markets have reacted with volatility, and questions about the rights of Hungarian citizens in the EU are creating widespread anxiety. For the EU, it's a second major departure after Brexit, raising questions about its future cohesion. For the world, it signals the growing influence of the China-led BRICS alliance within Europe's borders. Hungary's departure is a turning point in the balance of global power. Understanding this moment is crucial to grasping the challenges ahead. Hungary's entry into the EU in 2004 was celebrated as a return to Europe after decades of Soviet domination. EU funds modernized Hungary's economy, but relations soured after Viktor Orbán's return to power in 2010. Orbán's sweeping legal changes drew criticism for undermining democracy, leading to Article 7 proceedings by the EU. The 2015 migrant crisis deepened the rift as Hungary defied EU refugee quotas and built border fences. Clashes over LGBTQ+ rights, academic freedom, and Hungary's ties to Russia and China further eroded trust. Orbán's Eastern opening policy sought to diversify Hungary's economic dependencies, attracting major Chinese investment. Projects like the Budapest-Belgrade railway and battery plants signaled a shift eastward. The EU, once a benefactor, was increasingly seen as an obstacle to Hungary's ambitions. This set the stage for the dramatic break. Hungary's pivot to the east was a decade in the making, rooted in Orbán's belief that Western dominance was ending. China became central, with Hungary serving as a key entry point for Beijing's Belt and Road Initiative. Major projects like the Budapest-Belgrade railway and Chinese battery plants transformed Hungary's economy. Politically, Hungary blocked EU criticism of China and deepened ties with the BRICS bloc, especially after its expansion to BRICS+. Orbán praised BRICS for respecting national sovereignty, contrasting it with the EU's perceived interference. Hungary maintained close ties with Russia, securing energy deals and exemptions from EU sanctions. Orbán's stance on Russia isolated Hungary within the EU, but strengthened its position with the East. These moves demonstrated Budapest's willingness to defy the Western consensus. Hungary's new alliances were carefully cultivated, not impulsive. The stage was set for a historic realignment. The final break began when the EU withheld billions in funds over rule of law concerns, prompting Orbán to threaten a new path. In March 2025, Hungary announced a referendum on EU membership, framing it as a choice between Brussels' dictates and national sovereignty. The government's media blitz swayed public opinion, and the June vote saw 58% favoring exit. Hungary bypassed Article 50, passing the Sovereignty Act to nullify EU laws by November 2025. Brussels declared the move illegal, but Budapest pressed on, signing a strategic partnership with China and applying to BRICS+. The EU responded with sanctions, freezing Hungarian assets and imposing tariffs. Orbán, defiant, declared Hungary liberated and reborn. At midnight, the EU flag was lowered in Budapest, ending Hungary's 2-decade membership. The continent watched as a new era began. The rupture was abrupt, and the consequences immediate. Orbán's decision is rooted in his vision of illiberal democracy, a strong, centralized state prioritizing national interests and traditional values. He cast the EU as an external enemy, consolidating domestic support by framing himself as Hungary's defender. Leaving the EU frees his government from Brussels' scrutiny over rule of law and media freedom. Economically, Orbán is betting that alignment with China and BRICS+ will bring long-term gains, despite the loss of EU funds. The government argues the EU is in decline, while BRICS Plus offers dynamic growth and investment. Culturally, Orbán frames the exit as protecting Hungary's Christian heritage from Western liberalism. The alliance with BRICS Plus is seen as a better fit for Hungary's values. For Orbán, this is about defining Hungary's destiny on its own terms. The economic fallout was immediate. Hungary's currency plunged, the stock market crashed, and borrowing costs soared. The forint's devaluation triggered rampant inflation, making daily life more expensive for ordinary Hungarians. Businesses reliant on EU trade faced chaos as tariffs and regulatory barriers shattered supply chains. The government responded with a radical plan, pegging the forint to a basket dominated by the Chinese yuan and converting reserves to yuan. China offered a multi-billion-dollar credit line to stabilize Hungary's economy. Officials touted this as economic sovereignty, but critics warned of new dependence on Beijing. The government hopes Chinese and BRICS Plus investment will offset the loss of EU access. Economists remain skeptical, warning that replacing EU trade is a monumental challenge. Hungary faces a painful economic adjustment and deep uncertainty. The country has stepped into uncharted territory. Hungary's exit has plunged the EU into its deepest crisis since Brexit, shattering the narrative of inevitable unity. The sanctions on Hungary are meant as a warning to other Eurosceptic states. Brussels fears that if Hungary succeeds, anti-EU movements elsewhere will be emboldened. The crisis has sparked debate over the EU's future, deeper integration versus a multi-speed Europe. Federalists push for more unity, while skeptics warn of alienating smaller states. The departure exposes deep divisions within the EU and weakens its global standing. Hungary's embrace of China challenges the EU's model of rules-based cooperation. The event signals that the Chinese model is gaining appeal, even within Europe. The EU must now confront its own divisions and redefine its purpose. Europe's soft power has taken a serious blow. The continent faces a moment of reckoning. Hungary's realignment accelerates the world's drift toward a new era of global rivalry. By joining China and BRICS Plus, Hungary creates a breach in the Western alliance, a propaganda victory for Beijing and Moscow. Hungary now serves as a strategic foothold for Chinese and Russian influence in Central Europe. NATO faces security concerns, with a member state politically aligned with its adversaries. The US sees Hungary's move as a direct challenge, likely leading to a more confrontational Western bloc. Distinct economic and technological spheres may emerge, forcing nations to choose sides. For BRICS Plus, Hungary's inclusion is a landmark, lending legitimacy and attracting interest from the global south. The alliance is now a credible political pole in a multipolar world. Hungary's move is a game changer in global geopolitics. Hungary's exit from the EU and pivot to China and BRICS Plus is a watershed moment with global consequences. It redraws Europe's political map, plunges Hungary into economic turmoil, and intensifies global competition. The government has gambled on Eastern partnerships, risking economic stability and new dependencies. The immediate shock and uncertainty are the first costs of this newfound sovereignty. For Europe, this is a wake-up call, exposing deep ideological divisions and forcing a re-examination of unity. The global chessboard is being rearranged, with alliances more fluid and competition fiercer. The choices made in Budapest will echo far beyond Hungary, shaping the future of democracy and global order. This story is far from over.